Well, welcome everyone to Educator Insights for this month. Today's webinar is on inclusivity and accessibility, which is the Ally journey at James Cook University. And we are really lucky to have Fran with us, and I'll do a quick introduction in a second. But I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we are meeting. I pay my respects to the elders, past and present, and the Aboriginal elders of other communities who may be here today. So thank you. So let's, I'll just stop sharing here so you can see us all on camera. And then you can see in our fancy new gallery mode, Fran at the top there. So Fran, did you want to pop your mic? Yeah. So Fran, did you just want to say hi and who you are, and before we start your presentation?
Thanks, Jacqueline. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the session today. So my name is Fran Cochrane, and I'm one of the educational designers at James Cook University. And I'd also just like to take the opportunity to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands from which I'm sitting today and presenting, and that's the Bindal and Walkarookabar peoples in the Townsville region of far north Queensland. I came across into this role of an educational designer last year at JCU, so I've been in this role about a year, and prior to that I've been an academic at James Cook University in speech pathology for about 6 years prior to that. Thanks, Jacqueline.
Thank you. Okay, well, I'll give you just a second to get your presentation up, but just a reminder to everyone, if you've got any questions, please pop them into the chat. We'll try and answer any as we go. If you run into any problems, there are some Blackboard staff, wonderful people in the background here like Aaron and Rochelle and Nick that will be able to help you if you need to. So just, yeah, pop any issues into the chat as well. So over to you, Fran. Thank you.
Thanks, Jacqueline. So as I said before, welcome. Today I'm just going to talk through the Ally implementation journey that we've been through and are currently going through at our university, at James Cook University. I'm just going to give a little bit of background about James Cook and why kind of Ally was important for us to start the adoption process. And then I'm just going to share what our journey basically has been and will continue to be, and some of the main learnings, I guess, that we've reflected upon along the way. So hopefully everybody's journey with any kind of technology implementation is a little bit different, and hopefully some of the things that I'll talk about today might be just useful for you to think about if you're considering adopting Ally or any other piece of technology, I guess, in your learning management systems at your universities. So just as a little bit of background for those of you that don't know a lot about James Cook University, we're a multi-campus institution. I'm located up here in Queensland, in regional Queensland, in Townsville. That's where I'm sitting at the moment. And our other main campuses are in Cairns, so far north Queensland, but we also have sites in Brisbane, way up at the top of the page there in Singapore, and we've also got study centres in Mount Isa, Thursday Island and Mackay as well. So very much a regional university and a very diverse cohort of students. So we've had the university in Townsville, which is where the uni started, for 50 years. We celebrated our 50 years last year. So a relatively youngish university, but definitely our focus is on Northern Australia and the tropics and into Asia Pacific. So I guess when we were looking at Ally, really along our whole journey of the Ally adoption, we've really been focused on inclusive learning design. So that's been our focus. So we haven't just been focusing, I guess, on supporting students that have specific learning needs. It's very much been that kind of holistic approach. And why Ally was particularly important for us is that we're very much a university that's focused, as most universities are, on the student experience. So our number one priority was really to enhance the student experience of teaching and learning, so that ability for the students to be able to access a range of different alternative file formats of their digital learning materials has been really important. And I guess over the last 12 months too now, that there's so much more content now online. This has become really important for students, and I'll step you through some of the feedback that students have provided us in our early adoption surveys a little bit later in the presentation, and that really highlights the importance of having these accessible digital learning materials available for all students. Ally has also been a really great tool, I guess, in supporting academics to create more inclusive and accessible digital learning materials. So, even myself as, an academic for the last few years, before I came into this role, I really didn't have a good understanding of what accessible digital learning materials were. What are the steps, and how do I need to create my PowerPoints and my other learning materials to make sure that they're accessible? So Ally, we felt, was a tool that can really help support academics to create those accessible digital learning materials. And of course, we saw Ally as a tool in being able to support a whole range of different institutional policies, and then obviously linked into a range of inclusive and accessible government legislation as well. And for us at our institution, our particular policies that Ally can help support is our learning, teaching and assessment policy, and we also have a student digital experience policy as well, and they really focus on that students will receive accessible and inclusive learning materials that comply with legislative requirements. I've also embedded a short video here. This just goes for about 2 minutes. So in our early adoption of Ally, we rolled it out to all of our subject sites early this year. We wanted to get some initial buy-in, I guess, from academics, because I guess with a tool like this, a lot of folk focus on that it might be just a tool that's relevant for students with very specific needs, but we wanted to very much think a lot more broadly and try and engage staff into thinking that Ally would be a tool that would really help all students. So I'm just going to play this for you. It's available on our website, and I've got a link to this for you at the end of the session if you're interested in creating something similar.
Blackboard Ally. It's a new tool in Learn JCU to help assist you in improving access to inclusive digital learning materials. Diversity is our world's greatest asset, and inclusion is our greatest challenge. This quote prompts us to look at the diversity we see at JCU. At JCU, we have students from 108 different countries. Some students are from regional areas, while others are from very remote areas. For some, English is not their first language. They may be the first in their family to go to university. They may have a visible or hidden disability. Some will have dependent children. Some will have part-time or full-time jobs. All have diverse backgrounds and experiences, and all have different ways of learning. Students may prefer reading, watching, listening, swiping, highlighting, or zooming in on their learning materials. By making our learning materials more versatile, we can ensure that students have choice and variety in the ways in which they learn. This is where Blackboard Ally can help. For students, it provides flexible learning options by enabling alternative formats on digital learning materials. For lecturers, it provides accessibility scores against files and advice on how to improve those scores. To learn more about improving the access to your learning materials, visit jcu.edu.au.
So yeah, that was just a really quick little video that we put together very early in the piece to try and get some of that early buy-in, and we do think that did help, because we've certainly got a lot more academics now thinking a lot more broadly around inclusive design. So just looking at kind of where we've come from and where we're heading along our Ally implementation journey, we really did start back in 2018, 2019, I guess, where we were doing a lot of learning about Ally. So we were starting to do you know, a little bit of playing around with it, seeing what the benefits were. Then early in 2020, we started to do some piloting. So we were able to, I guess, find those academics and subject coordinators who were really keen and were happy to pilot Ally. So we were able to pilot it in a range of different subjects across a range of disciplines. So from quite small subjects right up to very large cohorts where there are over 1,000 students enrolled in a subject. So we really think that piloting process was so valuable in the early stages of really getting to know how Ally worked. The little trickiness about some of the components, and it really helped shape, I guess, then where we were going with our project plan, and certainly helping us with our communication plan and that development of those early kind of support resources as well. Early in the piece, while we were doing the piloting, we put together a very small project team within our learning, teaching and student engagement, and that project team continues to work together today, and we meet very regularly, and I think that was key as well in having just a small group, so we didn't have too many people kind of in the game, but we certainly brought other people in as needed as we go, and I'll talk about our reference group as I travel along a little bit later. So within the project team, we've got myself, we've got our manager, Catherine Meldrum, and we've also got our UX designer, Treen. So Treen's on here today as well. So having Treen in particular with her UX background has been really useful in particularly around messaging and also the design of sort of adoption and rollout of a lot of our resources as well. In the latter half of last year, this is where the Blackboard team facilitated an adoption session for us. So this was really quite a key 3 days of adoption. And again, we pulled together those folk around the university. So we had about 30 people from around the university, and we really needed to make sure that we also pulled in people from Singapore and Brisbane as well, and Cairns, so that, you know, because we are that multi-campus institution. And we found people who really were accessibility allies, and I think that's really important as we've gone along and as we continue to go along. And if you're thinking about implementing anything like this at your institution, you know, really find those allies, so the people who can do some of that groundwork and really provide some of that key feedback for you as you go. So in that adoption session that we ran with Blackboard in late last year, the Blackboard team really talked about kind of 3 different implementation approaches. So from memory, there was a pilot approach, it was agile, and an organic. We were already into our kind of piloting phase, so I guess we've basically adopted a bit of a multi-pronged approach where we've used a pilot kind of approach. We've also used a little bit of an agile approach, but in somewhat as well, it's been a little organic. So particularly as we head out now into the future, you know, we haven't got specific targets at this stage, you know, that we're meeting. Maybe that will come ahead, but we're kind of learning as we go, and that's worked for us at the moment. It might not continue to work, but for the moment, particularly in these early stages, that's really worked for us. Late last year as well, we also pulled together a reference group. So this reference group were about 10 or 12 different people from around the organisation. So these included academics as well as key people from our library and also from our accessibility team as well. So this group has been really helpful in providing a lot of feedback and guidance as well as we go along. Also in that reference group is some of our learning advisors. So our learning advisors really are the staff who have key contact with students who you know, are seeking support for their learning. Last year as well, we started to do a little bit of socialisation and some early professional development for staff as well. So the socialisation was really a lot of talking and communicating to say, what Ally was. This is where we used the video that I just showed, and we started to create some resources and some messaging, because what we did agree as an institution is that we would adopt or switch on Ally basically in every subject on the 1st of January in 2021. So we did think about a staged rollout and how we might do that. However, there were some complexities if we were going to do a staged rollout. So JCU, we have so many different study periods. We've got that multi-campus kind of challenge, and we just thought that staging was going to be a little bit challenging. So we just ended up going with an all of institution adoption, and I do think that that has worked for us at the moment. Earlier this year, that's when our deployment and adoption really commenced, and in those first few months, particularly January to March, we delivered a significant amount of online staff professional development. So we had really great engagement in that PD for staff, and we'll continue with that later this year. The other great thing that we've done kind of alongside Ally is really starting to promote a lot more about inclusive design and UDL aspects as well. So one of the lovely things that JCU has done this year is that we do have a new Teaching Excellence Award, and it's an inclusive and accessible subject site award. So that will be awarded later this year. So there will be elements that staff will be able to use if they're interested in submitting a nomination for that particular award. They can certainly use the data that they're getting from their Ally subject report in that award. So that's been a nice little incentive as well, additional incentive. What we also did in those first few months is seek a lot of feedback. So we deployed a couple of online surveys, anonymous surveys to staff and also students, really to get that initial feedback. And that feedback was really valuable because it allowed us then just to refine our resources in particular and look at a couple of those kind of pinch point areas. So we'll continue to seek feedback as we go further out into the evaluation phase. We've also been gathering user stories. So Ally will provide you with a lot of fantastic quantitative data, but what we also wanted to accompany that with is some really nice qualitative user stories from both staff and students. So we're currently in the process of compiling those because we particularly want to hear users' voices, I guess, in the benefits, and that again will help to hopefully sell it to other students to access their alternative content types, and also to staff as well. And of course, later this week on Thursday is Fix Your Content Day, the Blackboard Worldwide Fix Your Content Day. So we'll be participating in that for the first time this year. So hopefully we'll get some good registrations from staff to be involved. And heading out into the future, we're starting to do some planning around our longer term kind of 1, 3 to 5 year evaluation process, and we'll continue to seek feedback and continue to refine our resources. And I'll show you some of the resources that we've continued to refine along the way based on the feedback that we've got and what we've learnt as we've gone about Ally. So the progress that we made, I guess, from January this year, we were starting at a reasonable place. So we were sitting at around 69% of an accessibility score. So in 4 months, the first 4 months of this year, we've seen a 17% improvement in the accessibility score of those digital files in the learning management system. So, so I think that's a pretty good improvement. We're now sitting up there at about 79%. So I guess one of the challenges, ongoing challenges for us will be, well, how do we maintain that and how do we continue to improve? Because that's already, a reasonable score, which is fantastic. as you can see there, for those first 4 months, we had over 40,000 alternative file format downloads by students. So students are absolutely accessing the file formats. And what I'm starting to get now, particularly in the last few weeks, is lecturers asking for specific data around usage. So they're wanting to see that students are using the different formats, and it's really nice to be able to tell them, yes, students are actually accessing audio formats and Beeline Reader. So that sort of provides further incentive as well for the staff. So the HTML and tag PDF versions are definitely our most commonly downloaded file format. So that sort of lets us know that a lot of students are accessing their learning materials via their digital devices. But particularly in March, we've started to see a really strong increase in all of those other formats, particularly Beeline Reader and to a lesser extent EPUB as well. So that's really a great thing, I think. Just while I was on that, one of our issue areas, I guess, continues to be the scanned PDFs. So these are the PDF documents that have not been through the optical character recognition process. So these continue to be a problem. We know that they're an issue, and particularly subject content areas around the STEM kind of areas. So these are mathematical equations, chemical formula, chemical diagram, those kind of things, where a lot of lecturers actually have handwritten type scanned content. So we know that those are challenges, and hopefully over time we'll be able to improve the accessibility of those files as well. In March, so 3 months or 12 weeks, I guess, into Ally, as I said, we sent out some feedback surveys to our staff and students. So we didn't have a lot of staff give us feedback, which is fine, but we did have quite a number of students. And I've just put up here a couple of the really kind of key learning areas, I guess, that we took away from the surveys. And the first one here, it was the number of students. This really surprised me, the number of students who are accessing their digital learning materials via mobile phone. So the majority are using a laptop, but there are a significant number of students who are accessing those learning materials from their mobile phone. So when we think back to kind of the number of downloads we're seeing of the HTML and tag PDF formats, that starts to make some links there as well, because those formats are much easier for the students to engage with on their mobile devices. Staff are reasonably happy with the feedback that Ally is giving them. So when they open that instructor feedback panel, staff are really thinking that feedback for the most part is really useful, and as I said, we're certainly seeing that in the improvement over time in the accessibility scores. One of the things I thought was really interesting as well is we asked students why they actually access those alternative file formats. And again here, these were two really strong themes that came out. So firstly, students are saying they access those alternative file formats because it suits their learning style and their needs at that particular time. And also the second main reason was it was much easier to engage with those materials on their digital devices. So I guess we're starting to get a little bit of a theme here. So we had students, make comments like they like to use the audio because it was handy for listening while commuting. And also another little comment there, they have helped me engage better with documents and they improve the visual quality of them. So I guess, some of those key messages then are that Ally has been really useful for all students, not just those students that have very specific learning needs and challenges like vision difficulties. It's really been something that's been positive for all of our students. One of the challenges, obviously, that staff have identified is like, with any kind of new tool, it's the time factor. So time to improve the files continues to be a challenge, and that's always going to be a challenge in academia, but we hope that the supports that we are able to provide and the resources to support academics will be useful. And also there's some of the issues that they found has been a little bit fiddly to fix. And one of the particularly fiddly things has been colour contrast. But again, that feedback has helped us really focus in on where our resources and supports need to be as well. Students have let us know that, you know, in some subjects there's too many clicks, so I guess we're using Blackboard Ultra. We've moved from Blackboard Original to Ultra in the last 3 years, and Ultra is really nice because it's quite a clean setup, but I guess that's some feedback for us to really think about how we might message back to staff around the setup of their subject site to make sure that they haven't got too many you know, embedded folders and subfolders in their subjects so that students have to do too many clicks to find their learning materials. And really nicely, students have also let us know that they would like access to more alternative types. So, for example, if the PowerPoint is uploaded, is uploaded as a PDF, they'd like the original PowerPoint file so that they can interact with it. So that's been really quite nice feedback as well to receive. So it was important for us in those early stages to kind of get that feedback, and particularly that student voice as well. Jacqueline, I'll just pause there for a second. Is there any particular questions at the moment?
None that I've seen so far. My plan at the end when you're done is I'll enable the video and the audio for everyone so we can see everyone in gallery view and stop sharing the presentation, and then we can have a little bit more of an interactive session. So we'll see how brave people are then. All right, keep going, no worries.
No worries. So I guess, you know, in our reflections over where we've come from in the last 12 months, and particularly the last 4 months since we've had Ally enabled, I guess some key messages and some key learnings really have been that we've used a very broad range of communication channels and provided, you know, a very broad range of support as well, including that at elbow kind of support. So we've used communication channels not only from our unit, so from the educational designers, but more broadly as well. So we've used the library, we've used academic colleges, we've used individuals, the learning advisors, so a range of different areas to be able to filter out that information. So I guess it's important if you're you know, considering adopting Ally, really look for and seek out what are the potential communication channels that you could use. So we haven't had any problems in you know, people helping us with our messaging, but I guess when you do start to explore, there's actually a lot of different ways that we can communicate, and we've certainly used social media channels as well to get that messaging out to students. And in regards to the supports, making those supports and the online resources that we've developed readily available as well has been really important for us. Another key learning and reflection through our journey really has been finding those accessibility allies and really tapping into formal and informal kind of social structures, and really looking for those people who are your allies and who can be change agents to promote Ally. So coming from an academic background, I was fortunate. I had a lot of contacts across a lot of different colleges, so I certainly tapped into the folk that I know, but also through as I said, our broad range of other teams, really finding those people and creating relationships with those people who can be your change agents, I think has been key for us at the moment. So, you know, yes, you know, we still have issues with adoption. There is still somewhat in some areas of the university, you know, not you know, challenges around adoption and things like that. And I think particularly, you know, it's been a challenging 12 months. So to add another, a new tool, I guess, onto academics is always going to be challenging, but we take the wins where we can get them, and that certainly helped motivate us to to achieve, I guess, what we have in a short amount of time. The other thing that's been really quite key is the data. So I'd really encourage you to where you can, really use that the Ally Institution report, but also in our PD we've been very mindful to educate the academics around how they can use their subject report as well, and what sort of data those reports really help with. So numbers can be powerful messages, particularly when we're passing that data upwards to our Associate Deans of Teaching and Learning and our Deans of Colleges and course coordinators and people like that. So we've been doing regular monthly reporting. I'm going to drop that back now to quarterly reporting, but that early reporting of data has been quite a powerful tool as well. And particularly that usage data, and I've been buoyed by the fact that I've had a lot of course coordinators, as I said recently, coming to seek more usage data to see particularly what kinds of alternative file formats are being downloaded in their subject sites. And I guess that's just one limitation of the reporting, is that the subject report doesn't provide the usage data. The staff will actually have to come to a central place for that usage data. So that will be one challenge in the future, but maybe Blackboard might be able to provide a little bit more of that information in the future. So I guess that's been our three key lessons, has been around that communication and relationship building, and really using the great data that is available in all of that reporting as well. I'm just going to share with you here some of the additional resources that we have developed. So Blackboard does have a comprehensive range of resources on their websites for Ally, and they're all great, but we were also just very conscious again to try and get that buy-in from staff and students, really just trying to personalise it and JCUify some of the resources as well. So one of the resources that we created was a student guide. So this sits on their electronic guide. What we've done for students is that we haven't used the term Ally, we're using the term alternative formats. And the reason for that is because when they access the alternative formats in their subject site, they don't see the word Ally, they see alternative formats. So we just wanted to simplify things for the students. We certainly use the term Blackboard Ally for staff, because staff see that wording. So we've given students some key information. One of the learnings that we had, in particularly looking at that data in those first few months, is we had a significant number of students accessing the HTML and tag PDF formats. And we were also receiving some feedback from students to say they didn't know how to download, they wanted the original file. So what we did was to create some material here, and there's a short video on how this, for the students, on how they can access the original file as well as the learning, the alternative file formats. So that challenge, and if you're adopting Ally, you might see that data. It's just in the the Ultra kind of user interface there, that if students want the original file, they need to go over and click on the three dots like they always did, instead of just downloading the alternative file formats. So that's one of the learnings and pieces of feedback that we did sort of a month or two, and we'll continue to add to this as we go as well. One of the other pages that we have put together for staff is around accessibility in Learn JCU. So we've got that video here that I just showed you before, and we've also got some really simple information here on how to work with different aspects of Ally. What we also did a month or so ago was just create some how-to videos, so step-by-step videos on how to actually work with Ally in your subject site. So it's me talking, so a lot of academics will know me. It's not a Blackboard voice, and I've particularly used our learning management system as well, so it's a familiar setup for staff. And I've also created a video there for the staff on how to use their subject report as well, and how to engage with that. The other pieces of information that we've provided is around some of that STEM content, so particularly like the math and chemical equations. So we've just made some additional material available for staff and students around equations. So that's just some extra notations in there as well. So as I said, as we go along and we receive feedback, we've been creating that extra resources. And you will receive a copy of the PowerPoint today, and that's just a link to that original video as well. So that brings us to the end, and I'll just stop sharing for the moment.
Thank you so much, Fran. That was wonderful. So good, particularly around the organic growth, that idea that you can just start small and let it grow itself. It's not that you, particularly like you were saying for academics and everything now, the pressure of adding extra things, sometimes that's a bit of a problem. So a couple of other organisations too I've been talking to recently have done the same thing and had great success with it. And I think it's too because of that same thing you were talking about, finding the champions, the allies. They kind of find it and then get all excited and then share it, and that goes really well. I also loved what you brought up around change. So again, not just with the allies, but also with the videos and the support and all those sorts of things. The fact that that simple video that you had at the very beginning did make an impact. I think sometimes people worry about, well, is it worth doing that sort of thing? But it's really nice to see that, that is a way of introducing and for people to go back to as well about what that resource is. And I particularly also loved the student feedback, the fact that to see that although 95% of students do use their laptops, that 60% of them are still accessing content via mobile devices. And what you were talking about really resonates too with a lot of other clients, which is the fact that that students don't have to have a disability or a need to use accessibility. It really is access to everything and inclusivity for all. It's not saying this is this is limited to anybody in particular. So those examples of people being able to use audio is fantastic. People do want different ways into their content. So you are genuinely supporting students to learn the way they want to. So it's wonderful. Congratulations, James Cook Uni, and you. I love your resources as well. Let's just see, we've got a few minutes left here for some questions. If people want to turn their videos on now, or if you've got a little icon there for your picture, should show up in gallery view now. So Paul's headed off, so that's fine. Is there anybody with any questions? If you wanted to ask a question, please pop your hand up, raise your hand, and then we'll let you know and just keep an order of things. Someone's got to have a question. That was so good.
While folk are thinking about questions, I'll just also say that yes, it's been the student feedback we've received has been useful for all students, but it really has helped those particular students that have very specific learning needs. So we've also had that feedback, and certainly from our accessibility teams. Students that have got macular degeneration and some other learning needs, it has been a particularly useful tool for them as well. So the accessibility team has said that it's even streamlined some of their work in having to recreate some content for students. So it's taking out a step in their process as well.
Okay, no raised hands so far. Everyone's very shy today, although we did get some chats, so that's pretty good. Is there anyone here whose organisation is also using Ally that just wanted to talk a little bit about, whether this has been the same sort of experience for them or has any comment? Okay, so Nick has a question there, just about, are alternative formats just something that students are expecting as part of the course solution now?
Possibly will be. So I guess particularly, students now that have come into first year this year and didn't know any different, I guess now they will be expecting to have alternative formats available on, the majority of their learning materials, and that's fine. That I think is a good thing, that students expect that they're going to have materials that are going to be accessible but also flexible for them as well.
Fantastic. Now, we'll just see if there's just one more minute, people, if you've got any questions. Otherwise, we will wrap up. Just while we're waiting, I'll pop in just a couple of other things, other links. So Phil Murray has just asked, what do you think is missing from Ally?
Yeah, so I think, great question. I think one of the key things is what I mentioned before, is just around the usage report. So personally, coming from an academic background, if I could hop into my subject report and actually see for my particular subject what students are accessing, so the usage in my particular subject, I think that would be really useful, again, just for motivation, and also allows you then to, particularly zero in on your cohort of students for that particular subject and see what their particular learning needs might be. So I think that is definitely one thing that's missing. I think the rest of the feedback that is provided in those instructor panels is really useful. Some, yes, is a little bit fiddly, but I guess it's like anything. Once you practice and how to do things, things get a little bit easier. And like I said, the colour contrast, I think, can be a little bit challenging. So maybe just some further kind of information around how to fix some of those colour contrast areas would be useful.
Fantastic, thank you. Yeah, so there's been some other comments, but there's no more questions. I just want to highlight what you spoke about earlier, which is that our Fix Your Content Day is happening in 2 days' time. So the challenge is up there to see who can win that one. Even as individuals, even if your organisation is not taking part, it's a good thing to be able to reflect and look at any content that you provide and make sure that it is as accessible as possible. For example, if you use Twitter, you can always put accessible content on any images and things that you upload there too. So there's lots of ways to tackle that. I put up 2 other links there. One is to Educator Insights. Yeah, Charles Darwin won last year, so no pressure, James Cook. Yeah, so check out Educator Insights for future webinars and sessions. Also, to our communities are really good spaces to go to, both for student resources, academic and also institutional. And one last thing I'd like to mention is we're about to launch a community of practice for learning technologists and learning designers to support that area with our clients. So if you are keen to participate, we do have a list of some names and things, but I'll just pop my email address in here. Please email me if you want to be included in the mail out that I send out, and I'll talk and then I'll type, because otherwise I can't do both at the same time, obviously. But please join in. The community of practice is aimed at being able to share insights, presentations, content, try and not reinvent the wheel, and really give those learning practitioners that a bit of excitement and energy around the work that they do. It will be led by people from your community, but supported by us here at Blackboard. So Yvette Drager, who's based in WA, and I will both be your champions in that space. So we really look forward to working with you in that too. Thank you very much for attending Educator Insights today. We hope to see you at the next one. Thank you so much, James Cook Uni and Fran in particular, for your awesome presentation today. And we'll see you all again next time. Thank you.
Thank you all.